Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
If you're going to be on television and you are going to be interviewing, writing, speaking to an audience, then you have a voice, and you have to think about what that voice is.
Coming up, you know him as a correspondent and anchor for the PBS NewsHour. But Jeffrey Brown has also developed a very personal voice as a poet. Learn more next on Dialogue. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. For more than 25 years, my guest today has worked at the PBS NewsHour. Jeffrey Brown has been a national affairs producer, an anchor, and the senior arts correspondent for the program. Now he finds himself joining the ranks of the creative types he's covered as a poet. In 2015, Brown published his first book called The News, Poems. The 45 poems in the book provide a more personal look at Brown's take on his profession, as well as some poignant observations about the stories he's covered. I caught up with Brown at the 2015 Sun Valley Writers Conference to learn more about his life in poetry and prose. Well, welcome to Idaho.
Nice to talk to you, Marcia. Thanks for having me.
You're here at the Sun Valley Writers Conference in a different capacity than we normally see you in. You're here as a writer.
I'm here as a writer.
What's it like to be?
I'm here as a poet.
Yes, a poet.
Yes.
What is it like to be in this?
Well, I should say I'm here as both. I mean, I came last year and it was so much fun. My wife and I came, we had a great time. And I was here in my traditional capacity as a journalist and someone who deals a lot with the arts and talks to a lot of writers and artists, so they asked me to come and I did some interviews for them. And we all hit it off so well, we loved it. Before the conference was done, they said, why don't you come back next year? And we said, absolutely, yes. In the meantime, yes, a book has come out, poetry book has come out.
You had a baby in the meantime?
Had a baby, and the only one I'm having at this point, because I'm otherwise done with that. Two good ones, but they're out of the house, we're done. So yes, had a baby, had a book, and here now reading from the book as a poet. So it's interesting, it's fun, it still tickles me a little bit to be introduced that way as a journalist for PBS, but also as a poet.
Well, I understand it carries some cachet in places like Timbuktu.
Yes, that's true. That was the first place that I was heard myself introduced that way. I was in Mali last year for the NewsHour doing some stories, and I went to Timbuktu, the famous sort of ends of the earth in medieval times. And I went because there's been a lot of fighting there in recent years, and we went to see what has happened in the aftermath. And when we travel on trips like this, we work with local producers, fixers we call them, as you know. And so we had somebody translating for me, and he was introducing me to the imam of the famous Timbuktu Mosque. So I'm being introduced, and it's in French, so I can sort of follow a little bit. And he says, Jeffrey Brown, he is a journalist with public television in the United States, and the imam is listening, and this is what he does, he reports on this, blah, 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 and the imam, And then I hear the translator say, and he is a poet. And that was the first time I had heard myself introduced that way. And then, but the funny part was the imam kind of went, oh, he lifted, oh. So I thought, oh, that's interesting, a poet. And the imam, that meant something to him. So.
Well, it does. It does mean, seems like much more in some countries than it does here. I don't know that there's the appreciation for poetry here as there is in other countries.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I live among many poets for the NewsHour. It's very important to me. I'm very proud of the fact that we're able to bring a lot of literature and the arts, but in particular poetry, to a national nightly news program. I always used to laugh that we could actually do that on a news program, present poetry. So I feel like we made a case for it, we present it, we say poetry is important to the culture, it tells us something about everything that goes to the news. Is it honored in the United States? Not that much, but on the other hand, there's a fair amount of poetry going on, and I've gotten to know over the years and through interviews and friendships many of our leading poets, and if I say to them, poetry really has no place in the United States, does it? Or and much of the time they'll say, well, actually, there are so many poetry readings going on at any one moment in the United States. Every city in this country has readings, has a pretty vibrant poetry scene. It's never going to be, never has been, never going to be a mass audience. But many of our great art forms, whether it is jazz or all kinds of things, they're very vibrant art forms, not for a mass audience, but for a very passionate audience.
Well, and if you listen to hip hop and some other kind of music, it's
Absolutely.
poetry in a different form.
Word-based, yes, of course, it's a kind of poetry,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Why not write, though, a nonfiction book, a memoir, or, as your colleague Jim Lehrer did so successfully, a novel?
Well, I've thought about all of them at different times, and it still may come in different one form or another. But the poetry has been there for a long time. Fits and starts, stops and starts. I just saw it as another way of telling things. I mean, I live a life in the news of prose, I guess I would say, right? So nonfiction, I love reading nonfiction, and there's part of me that there are things that I think I would like to write about, but it was more interesting to try to write in a very different style and format. And poetry it breaks down the language, it breaks down the sentence structure that we have to tell our stories on television. It changes the way we talk, it changes the way we think, it changes the way we use imagery. So I don't know. I've been asked why poetry, and I tried to answer it. I wrote an essay in the end. I tried to answer it there, but there isn't a great answer other than it just sort of came out that way, and I liked it, so I just kept doing it.
Gotta do what makes you feel good. Is the poem Poetry in Prose about that? Where you say, after much reflection, I have decided to respectfully decline your offer? I was trying to think if that was the offer of prose versus poetry.
No, but I'm glad you thought of that. Most of the poems in here are, I think, fairly accessible, and you can sort of tell what I'm talking about because they're particular stories, and I can sort of give you the background of any of them. This one has a background, but it's a little bit more mysterious, and I kind of left it this way. It's actually about a job offer.
Well, that's what I thought it was.
But it is a very specific job offer,
First.
which I won't go into. But that's what it is. But in my response, which was written first in prose, I looked at it and I changed a little bit of the language, but not much, and wrote it in poetry, and somehow it had a different kind of life. That's why I kind of, it's a bit of a joke to write, it's called poetry in prose, but that's exactly what it is. And it was also, though, made me think again about this question of what's different about poetry and prose.
Well, I have to say, when I looked at the words on the page...
Thank you for asking about that one, by the way, because you're the first person, and I always wondered how will people take that?
Well, when I first read it, I have to say, it says, after much reflection, I've decided to respectfully decline your offer. I thought, ooh, what's this about a job offer, But then it's called poetry in prose, so I thought, well, maybe he's declining the offer of prose and saying, no,
I'm sticking with prose, but I'm adding poetry.
When I look at the words on the page, what stood out for me all of a sudden was that it looked like teleprompter language, which is longer and thinner, so that when when we read our teleprompters, it's almost like it's line breaks for poetry.
Well, that's true. Now, that's very interesting. I don't think of it so much as teleprompter, but I do think of it as television script writing. I don't know how you write your scripts, but when I write my reporting type scripts, and actually, of course, this is what ends up on the teleprompter, but I do write them with different kinds of line breaks from regular prose, because it's the voice, right? It's where do you want your line to end?
Right.
Where do you want the emphasis to be? If you're looking into a teleprompter, or if you're reading a script in the audio booth, you're telling a story in a different way than if you're writing a piece of prose. And so, yes, the line breaks are different in that. I'm sure there's a connection there.
Well, let's have you read from your book. Your book is divided into 4 sections: nightly news, questions, news from home, and the news at midnight. I want you to read something called Lead Story.
Lead story, okay. That's from the first section. And first section is, as you say, called Nightly News, and it is more, in a sense, asking questions about what is the news? You know, what is it that we do here? And what's going on? What does that mean? So this one is, I call it song lead story because it is song-like. It, more than others, it has a fair amount of rhyme. It's kind of a pace to it and a rhythm. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it feeds the want of eyes, and I who bring you this festival of fear. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it sees the devouring eyes, and I who recite you this carnival of crime. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it reads the hunger of eyes, and I who offer you this parade of pain. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it needs the sanction of eyes, and I who perform you this theater of theft. If it bleeds, it leads, and if it bleeds, it heeds the fickleness of eyes, and I who play you this symphony of sin. If it bled, it led, the broken, the dead, the aversion of eyes, and I who sing you this lyric of loss.
It's pretty raw stuff.
Yeah.
Symphony of Sin.
Parade of Pain, Theater of Theft. I mean, obviously had fun with the alliteration at this point.
It's a statement about the sordid side of news.
This one is, yeah.
Yeah, I chose that one. You have a couple others, and one says, what do we see and what do we say, between what happened and who cares, between give a damn and what the hell. I mean, these are pretty strong statements about the
Well, but this is what
profession.
we, you know, when we sit down every morning, we have an editorial meeting. And and there's a zillion things that have happened on any given day. And and I don't just mean we, but every news organization does this, makes decisions about what we're going to put on our program or in our newspaper that day, or on our site. What's the criteria? How are those decisions made?
But are you casting judgment on it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, in some cases, perhaps. I mean, this is for the reader to think about. I mean, in the one that I just read, local news, to my taste, yeah, there's too much. If it bleeds, it leads. Is that the most important story of the night? That car crash or police shooting? Often it's not the most important story, if you mean important as in impact on the most people in a given city. The other one, though, is important, is that you just cited, the song of the news. Do you mind if I read that one, though? Because that ends this section, and it's one that of all of these got worked and became very short, and asked and kind of, for me, whittled down these kinds of questions. So it says, what do we see and what do we say? Between what happened and who cares? Between give a damn and what the hell? Between good evening and good day? Car crash, caress, the children at play? All that we see and all that we say. So it's a little, I call it Song of the News. It's like a little song to my mind. But it asks this question. It's literally sitting down, what did we see? What do we see out in the world? And what are we going to say about it? And then between what happened today and who cares? I mean, how much do we care about a given thing as opposed to another thing? Between give a damn and what the hell? I mean, there's only so much caring that one can do about the world sometimes. But on the other hand, we have this responsibility to show what's happening in the world. So that's what I'm looking at, is these kinds of very human questions that are behind the news.
Was it hard to get personal with these poems because I think you and I come from the same tradition in news, which is that we are not the story. And we're trained, but also I think it comes naturally, at least it does for me, to keep myself out of the story. Was that hard? I don't know that I could put my raw emotions down.
There, first you come to a point of, I definitely come from that tradition, and it's very important, sort of NewsHour style from Jim Lehrer and Robin McNeil. We were taught, we are not the story. And but that's always been an interesting question to me too, which I try to get at in this book, which is we're of course there, and we of course are part of the story. And one of the interesting things that happened to me when I first went on television, I had been a producer for a long time behind the camera. So when I first went on camera and I saw that people saw me in a different way, even though I felt not that different vis-a-vis my relationship to the stories that I was covering. But I saw that people were seeing me as the teller of the story in a way that they hadn't before. So on one hand, we are not the story. On the other hand, if you're going to be on television and you are going to be interviewing, writing, speaking to an audience, then you have a voice, and you have to think about what that voice is. So that's something I grew to develop, I guess, on television. And then more specifically to your question of poems that are more personal in nature, I guess they started coming, I did those, I think I would say that I did those after I did the more news-based. As I felt more comfortable using my own voice, the I as writer, telling the story in a new way. Yeah, it was a little hard, but I guess I got comfortable with it. And I felt that I thought people would accept it and maybe even be interested in that kind of voice.
Well, on a personal note, I'll interject myself.
Okay.
My father being a very important individual to me, I would really love it if you'd read a poem that you wrote in honor of your own father.
Okay. This is Succession, and this is about the day of the funeral, where, of course, many strange things are going on in one's mind and one's person and all kinds of people around. And in Massachusetts, where I'm from, probably elsewhere, but if you're driving to the funeral, the state police come and guide the funeral procession of cars. So that's how this starts. It's called Succession. One morning, state police escort us to your grave. The next, my flight is canceled. Maintenance issues breaking out all over. You would speak of a grand theory, something tying all this together. But you had none yourself, none that reached me then or now, as I drive your car slowly into the tranquil streets of my youth. Here is where I learned to ride a bike on this high hill that is no hill at all, and still I fell. And now you descend, and still I fall. And here is where I learned to doubt in the chapel where we donned black skull caps that meant nothing, I tell you. If God speaks, it is elsewhere. And here are my own children, rooted and uncertain, watching me speak to you. You watched the news every night, worried if I did not make air, traveling, sick, useless, lost. Now that you are gone, traffic parted by the state police, can I too disappear? The first time I read that one was actually on national television when I did something on the NewsHour, so it was a little hard to actually read it out for the first time. I was with Gwen Ifill, my good friend, and so, but to read her, but you ask about, is it hard to write personal stuff? Some of this is a little hard, not even so much, there's obviously the loss, but it has me wrestling with some things where I thought my father fell short, like where he didn't live up to all that I wanted, which isn't to say that he didn't, but in one's mind as a child, one goes through all of these things. So when I say that he had a grand theory, he was always, you know, he fancied himself as a reader of science books. He wasn't a scientist, but he loved to read science books, and he would talk about the grand theory of the universe. And part of me was always thinking, yeah, but Dad, you know, okay, if you're into it, really learn it, you know. So, but, you know, as old as I was still like a little kid, like, you know, so I thank you for, you know, I found that this is connected with a lot of people because everybody has that kind of sense of love and confusion and all these kinds of things going on at the same time.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time, but you've also written about the places that you've been, Beirut, Haiti.
Yeah.
Some of the things that the camera doesn't really see.
Yeah.
The people off to the side,
Right.
what they're doing.
Well, this was very important to me.
That might be a little bit easier for me. It's often what I would like to do because you can't always show the viewer everything that you see as a reporter, and some of the most poignant things actually may happen.
You can never tell the whole story. You can never show it all. You can never tell everything you know. But even more basically than that, and there's another poem in here where I write about Richard Avedon, the photographer, you know, one of the great photographers of our time. So he said to me, the camera lies all the time. Now he was, you know, he was putting it dramatically. He kind of laughed and said, I don't mean lie, lie is too strong a word, but that's true, right? I mean, the camera does lie in a sense. It tells the truth, but it only tells one truth. And anybody knows that from just taking a picture of their friend or loved one. Or, I mean, I can get you, you know, I could, and we know as, you know, as television news people that camera, we can make people look good or bad. We can do all kinds of things. I can see the cameraman smiling as I say that, you know. I mean, we know that we can do that kind of thing, right? So the camera tells one particular story, but not the whole story. So some of these where I was able to think about very meaningful and powerful places I had been, like Haiti or Beirut or other places. Joplin, there's one about going in the aftermath of the tornado there, was to just try to tell a slightly different story than the camera was actually able to capture.
Something that's been very important to the NewsHour over the years, started when Jim Lehrer was still there, is honoring service members who have died. Right. Many people remember, I'm sure, remember that in silence the names going by. And you have some poems as well. Right.
They're called Honor Roll, which is what we call it on the program, and I would often be anchoring and be the person saying, you know, before we go to, we had a very specific lines we remember and we would say, before we go tonight, here are 5 more, say.
I wonder if you'd read one for our viewers.
What I did in this case was, these are not actually real people. I almost thought of using real people at the beginning, but I decided not to. I made them up. This is one, Army Private J.G., Iraq, 2006. His last ride the airport into town, shotgun in the armor-plated vehicle, hunk of junk, strap in, hold on. Could barely hear himself think or scream, go ahead, scream. And this he loved on the roller coaster back home, arms flapping, hair raised. Saw movement in the shadow just before the explosion hit. Amusement park my ass, he said, tasting metal in a foreign ditch. Like a dog that rushes into the waves, eyes shining, fur flying, until the sea rises up and takes him away.
What I appreciate and like about these poems is that you take an image from their childhood, from who they were as a child, and really a lot of the soldiers that died were barely out of childhood.
It's so moving.
And you bring it forward. So he liked amusement park rides when he was a kid.
And again, I made this up, but if you're sitting at, and the power of these things, and I should, it is Jim Lehrer who came up with this, and I must say that at the beginning I was sort of I was one of the people a little skeptical about this idea.
Of the honor roll.
Yes.
Yeah. Not the
Well-
he didn't come up with the idea for the poems.
No.
The-
He
yeah.
came up with the honor roll on the program. And I was a little skeptical as I wasn't sure that it would work, but he wanted to give it a try, and to his great credit, extremely powerful. And the power of it is just to show the picture. It is the one photograph of the man or woman in uniform, and only to say the name, the service, the rank, and the hometown. That's it. And that image is up there for, I think we would keep them up for 5 seconds each. And I know because I'd be sitting there and they'd be timing it. And so you just have that image and just have that little text, and you have to make up that life in 5 seconds. And it's so powerful. And as you say, most of them are so young. And if you're a parent or you're a certain age and you're looking at them and you say, it can bring a tear to your eye just sitting there and watching. So they're very powerful. And what I tried to do in writing, I wrote 5 of them, was to try to fill in a couple of some details. And again, not a lot of detail, but just enough. The amusement park in that one, just to imagine that this was a guy who, just loved nothing more than riding the roller coaster and screaming, and then put it into a moment in Iraq where he's taking his last ride, a very different kind of ride.
Have you been bitten enough by the bug to write some more?
Yes, I have. I'm in the news business, so I'm a deadline kind of guy, and I gave myself a deadline to write another manuscript, but I messed up. I missed my deadline, so because there was too much else going on. But I've been writing, and I've got the beginnings of something more. So I have a few. I want to keep writing poetry, and I have a few other ideas. I love what I get to do for the NewsHour, but this is also fascinating and a different way of expressing yourself. So I like doing it.
And I assume those are under wraps still, your ideas?
Yeah, I'm going to keep them under wraps. Yeah. I'm not breaking any any news here. No. I have different ideas. We'll just have to see what plays out.
Well, I look forward to hearing what those manuscripts turn out to be, and maybe you'll come back to Sun Valley and share them with a wider audience as well.
I would love to. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
All
taking
right.
the time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to NewsHour correspondent and poet Jeffrey Brown. Our conversation was recorded at the 2015 Sun Valley Writers Conference. I'd like to thank the organizers of that event for allowing us to interview some of their insightful speakers. For more about Mr. Brown and his book of poems called The News, check out the Dialogue website. Just go to idahoptv.org and click on Dialogue. That's also where you'll find a link to an extra I taped with Mr. Brown about his coverage of the arts and his work with the iconic news producer, Fred Friendly. For Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin. Thanks for tuning in.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.